Welcome to today's community conversation. My name is Kimberly Furman, and I will be your community host. We are joined today by the very talented Rina Sahay, Nauman Mysorewala, and Autodesk's own Viveka Devadas. So today we are going to be taking a sneak peek. These three are giving a Autodesk University session entitled The Superb Guide to Easy Revit, and they've agreed to let you in on a few of their tips and tricks before then. Okay, go ahead to the next slide. Community conversations provide opportunities for engineers, designers, artists, and makers to meet in a safe, live, virtual setting to share expertise, get to know leaders in your field, and grow your community network. The sessions are always supported by Autodesk community managers to help guide conversation, feed important insights back from the community to Autodesk, and support participants in getting connected to the expertise you need. Okay, and next slide. So here's some ground rules and norms before we can begin today's conversation. Everyone's line is muted to reduce background noise. So we do invite you to keep your camera turned on if you prefer, so that we can get as close to a physical environment in our new virtual world. Number two, this conversation should be exactly that, a conversation. So go ahead and click that button there, Rina. You can use the Zoom raise hand function, and our moderator will unmute you to ask a question. Rina will also be taking questions throughout and use questions to guide the discussion. You can also type questions into the chat at any time. The session is being recorded and will be emailed to all attendees and also uploaded to the Community Conversations website. By participating in this session, you consent to being recorded. Time to warm up that voice a little bit. Go ahead, next slide. So just quickly, our safe harbor statement. I'm going to read all this for you. If we make any forward-looking statements, I don't want you to make any purchase decisions based on those statements. If you are making purchasing decisions, look at the software in its state today and that alone. Rina Sahay and Nauman Mysorewala are independent of Autodesk Incorporated and Autodesk subsidiaries. All activities, advice, and opinions expressed here should in no way be linked to Autodesk or its subsidiaries. Autodesk does not endorse and has no responsibility for the actions of these persons or the content, advice, or information provided by today's presenters. And with that, we'll go to the next slide. So again, my name is Kimberly Furman. I'm the Autodesk Revit Community Manager, and I've been around the industry for a very long time, architecture and civil, and very excited. I'm almost coming up on my 1 year, unbelievably, here at Autodesk, yay. And again, I'm gonna hand it over to Rina. I'm very excited to be sharing the Zoom stage with her today. So Rina, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Kimberly. Thank you for the great build-up, and thank you for the opportunity to come in. My name is Rina. I'm the Architectural BIM Management at Fishbeck, headquartered in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I am an expert elite and a certified Revit certified professional. I have presented at Autodesk University maybe 3 times since 2019. And I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to share my passion with you. Of course, step one of sharing my passion with you was actually getting the opportunity to present the superb guide to Easy Revit at AU 2021. So one of the challenges while putting that together that 3 of us faced was too much information and too little time. So when the opportunity for a community conversation came up, it was bingo, absolutely wonderful. This is a bonus round. We are repeating very little from the actual presentation. What you're going to be getting will be bonus tips and tricks. And presenting along with me are my dear friends, valued colleagues, Nauman Mysorewala and Viveka Devadas, both of whom I came in contact with via AU, which is a great social vehicle. And I'm really proud to have them sharing the stage with me. Nauman is the Senior Design Technology Manager at JERD, and you may know him better as either the BIMologist or as Dr. Revit, and his AU 2017 session about the code blue for Revit went on to become one of the most hit on sites in the Autodesk world. Viveka, it has been pretty much the V in the VR, Viveka and Rina. We have presented together before at AU 2019, and her passion is VR, XR, and AR, and she'll be talking, sharing a lot of her insights on those topics. So right now, let's just get ready, get set up, and let's go. And not just go in terms of the presentation, but go in terms of getting set up, which is something that our Dr. Revit, our very own Dr. Revit, would be the best person to introduce you to. Nauman, over to you.
Hey, thank you everyone for joining, and thanks for the opportunity for presenting. So I am, yes, sitting in California, dry, as Kimberly was reminiscing on, but nonetheless, let's get some knowledge rain going here. So first and foremost, with the new versions, you have the opportunity to click on the home page directly on the file. If it is a central file, it will prompt you to create a central model. And the other nice thing is that if somebody by any chance, they shouldn't double click on a file on Windows Explorer, and it opens up in the newer version, it will say, oh, wait, this is a central file. Do you want to create a local with it too as well? But I highly recommend you teach people not to double click on a Revit project file ever. Then also BIM360 files always open the work shared files locally. They have a hidden folder behind. So the next item here is the templates don't have to be an RTE file. Well, what do you mean? The template is an RTE, but you can't save the work sets, you can't save other settings like related to Revit or work set in terms of what should be on, what should be off, in visible in all view settings. So you can just create a file and call it a RVT project with all the settings. And then when you start a new project, just create a detached copy of the project itself. Rather than having to be able to just RTE and then running Dynamo scripts to set it up or manually setting it up. This way it kills a lot of time setting up a project. But the one thing that in any case you should do is not overload your templates, be it that this trick or just the RTE file with families. Just keep it in a container file, keep details in a container file or in libraries, then people can load very easily. But then I am an old school, came from the AutoCAD days since the 1980s, late 80s, but the keyboard was king, and so is still with Revit. And what I like about that is that you can create custom key shortcuts as well, but you can export them or share them with other users, use them and in a deployment. If you copy them in a program data folder, you should be able to, when a new user creates a profile, it should automatically be created for them too with your Office standard updated, because you can add custom add-in shortcuts as well. Mine are basically Rina's. These are Rina's actually, the AL for align. Well, that's the default. I basically remap AA to align and then remove the analysis model one. SCC for sections, and then CA for camera. And over to Rina because she loves a mouse. I don't know, she's a dog person, but I don't know why a mouse.
Well, thanks, Nauman. You know, one of the things that Nauman did address was the possibility for Revit to be completely mouse-free, where you go ahead, use keyboard shortcuts, both hands, and you can actually function, you can actually produce. But going back to the mouse, Revit was designed to be a completely mouse-driven program. So let's take a look at some tips and tricks on how to use it. A time saver alert for you. I'm sure that you're already familiar with the ability to move items quickly by just click and drag. You don't have to click on the move command in the toolbar, or to copy really quickly, you click control and drag elements. Try this, try to move with nearby elements. In this example, what you see is we've got the furniture. The furniture was selected and it was told to move. It was told to move with nearby elements. And now when I move this wall, then the furniture will move along with this. Also, try clicking activate dimensions. Take a look at what happens. So a tip for you, in order to create an aligned copy, to the magic click, control, and drag, add in the shift key. And then you will see that Revit will create an aligned copy for you. Double clicking, the default behavior that Revit gives you is to double click to edit boundary, double click to edit family. Please, please, please do that. Don't just click on an element and click on the edit boundary or edit family buttons. That's just a little bit more of wrist action than you'd really want. Too much hand-eye coordination. Just double click, you should be fine. Now, if you feel that you're not getting your money's worth out of double click behavior, go to File and Options. The File tab right at the bottom of the menu, you will see the Options button. Go there under User Interface. You will be able to remap double clicking to give you the kind of behavior it is that you want. So double clicking can do things other than edit boundary or edit family. And with that, Nauman, why don't you talk about being selective in Revit?
Oh, so every Revit, you have to be a little bit more selective than what you copy files, paste files, things like that. It's always a good idea to make sure that you are not messing up items that are, deleting and whatnot. So what you need to, in general, do is making sure that you are a little bit of selective of what you can select and what you cannot. My favorites are basically making sure that I don't select underlay elements. I try not to sometimes select pinned elements depending on the need. You can turn off links to be selected. The last one is really critical. I tend to turn that off, which is called drag elements on selection. What that means is that if you hover over an item and it's highlighted, and you click on the mouse and drag it, it will move. If you uncheck that box, you will have to click it, then let the mouse button go, and then you can drag that element. This prevents a lot of errors in the project, because sometimes people will move these links, but you should be pinning those links in any case. Then basically another favorite of mine, though, is these selection sets where you can save them, you can load them up, you can edit what's in there. But this is a static selection set, but you can update and add more to it as well. The other nice thing about that is that some of these elements that you have selected and are part of that selection set, you can apply filters on it as well for visibility graphics override. So that's another benefit of this.
All right. So now let's take a look at being a view
Can I
master.
just interrupt real quick?
Yes.
So Nauman, the selection tools that you were talking about, I just happened to see today about a Revit idea that came in to make groups one of the options for selection, for toggling selection on and off. So
Nice.
Go find that Revit idea. It's a brand new idea, and vote that one up as well. So
Will do.
Oh, I love that site now.
Yeah.
They've done an awesome job at it.
Yes. And so many of those ideas have actually, come back into the software, and they're all there to help us out. Wonderful. We'll vote for that. All right. So what do I mean when I talk about being a view master? In Revit, the basic principle is you build a virtual building, you take a virtual camera, you walk around the building, you walk through the building, you walk through walls and things like that. And you're taking pictures, which then you place on a sheet. Now, just as with a regular camera, where you can use different lenses and different filters. Similarly, we can apply different tools to make our virtual camera show exactly what we do want. So One of the complexities in Revit is that we have a lot of linked in material. It could be linked Revit files, could be linked CAD files. So let's say we want to halftone a category or categories from the linked file in the view. In this example, we are trying to hide any furniture. We've got furniture, casework, furniture systems. We set up a whole new filter. We select the categories that we want to hide. And right now, I'm not even setting up a rule over here because I want all the furniture and all the casework to be selected. Once this filter has been created, our job is half done. Then we need to go into the visibility graphic overrides, and I can enable the filter. This is a really nice new tool that has emerged with Revit 2021. I can set the visibility, whether I want the selected objects to be visible or not visible, and then I can go ahead and click on the halftone button, which will halftone these selected categories in addition to the halftone controls that exist when you actually type VG to bring up the visibility graphic overrides dialog box. In addition to halftoning, you can do fun stuff. My favorite thing while testing a filter is take the lines and turn them pink. A great way to test stuff. In addition, I can set up patterns. I can set a transparency of elements. I do the same for cut surfaces. Makes life so much easier. This is something which everybody runs into all the time, where we have got linked files from mechanical engineering, plumbing. We can see, we've linked up their files and we can see their grids, we can see their levels. We don't want to see them. We want to see grids and levels in the architectural host file. In order to do that, one way out, of course, is you go into the view template and you edit the graphic overrides for the Revit links, which is a little circuitous, a less complex way. In the Manage Links dialog box, select the link that you want, go into Manage Worksets, and from here, you can close the workset that you don't want to see. This is going to involve a little bit of housekeeping in the sense that it would then be critical that all levels and all grids be placed in the shared grids and levels workset. Now, one of the challenges of Revit is just the complexity of it, the learning curve. And you know, when I started with Revit, I was kicking and screaming. I had just transitioned from AutoCAD. I was not a happy camper until I wrapped my mind around what it is that Revit is all about. And you know what it does? It's such an intellectual challenge. And one of the intellectual challenges which was posed, which I perceived in the software, was the fact that I could indulge in some creative thinking and come up with workarounds. Let's take a look at some of our favorite workarounds. With schedules, Revit 2022, you can split and place schedules. So I can go into, when I edit my schedule, I can go into split and place. I can select the sheets where I want the split schedule to be. Now, what this does is this allows me to tell the schedule that it's going to be split. And then once I place it in the desired sheets, I can go into each sheet and I can control the amount of information that I see on the schedule. This obliterates the need to duplicate schedules, let's say, or to play with the little zigzag zoom splitting thing. It just obliviates the need for either of those. I'm pretty happy about that. Combine parameters, one of my favorites. What this does is this would allow me to take information from two schedule fields, combine them into one. For instance, a door schedule, you would have a field for width, a field for height. I can actually take both of them. I could take width and height, and using the combine parameters tool, I could put them together with a separator. And what that does is that would give me the door size in one field. Secret tip for you. You don't have to use a separator. Supposing you are in a situation where you're trying to combine parameters A and parameter B. And it may be that some components would have both parameters, some would have A, some would have B. In that case, for the instances which only have, let us say, parameter A, the separator is going to show up. You don't want that to happen. Don't use a separator. In that case, take the separator, put it in as a prefix or a suffix. If either parameter A or B are not present, then the prefix or the suffix will not show up. One less thing for you to worry about, right? Family tricks, developing families. You know, when I'm having a headache and I'm really, really sick and tired of my production documents, I go ahead, I develop a family. My team knows it, they indulge me, they keep throwing family challenges at me. Let's take a look at some family tricks. In-place models. One of my early challenges, one of my early nightmares rather, when I started at a new position, I walk into this model, maybe 300 in-place models. You know how I realized that? I looked at the project browser and I saw in-place model 1, 2, 3, 4, 259, 301. It just boggled the mind. Why would you do that? And here, this is what is basically wrong with in-place modeling. When you make copies of an in-place model, it will crowd up, it will populate, it will bloat the project browser because each instance of that in-place model will show up as a different family. You don't want that to happen. If ever, and the best way to use an in-place family would be, let's say you've got a reception desk. You just need one of those. That's about it. Or if you're trying to model something that is complex, a barrel vaulted roof, for instance, and you know there's just going to be one of them, go ahead, model that in place. But if you have, let's say, if you've got classroom desks, for instance, you are going to model that in place. Model it in place and then convert it into a family. Edit it in place, group, save that out to the library as a group, and then open it as a family. It will open as a family. Another secret tip, most of the places I've worked at have had the first floor level at 100. When I create an in-place model and I convert that into a family, that geometry in the family is going to be sitting up there at 100, which means that when I try to place the family in my model, it's going to be flying 100 feet above the desired level. Open up the family, make sure that that geometry is sitting right down below at 0, 0. The invisible line trick. I've used this a lot in higher ed projects, especially retail, most especially in entertainment projects where we have got overhead equipment, we've got projectors, we have got monitors, things like that. I've got components flying above the cut plane. The cut plane doesn't see them, but there may be situations where I would need to show them in the plan. One way out, we use the underlay and we see the underlay and we draw hidden lines over that, which is a messy procedure at best. The next best way would be to edit the family and in an elevation view of the component, just draw a plain simple invisible line. Just be really careful though. You don't want to go overboard with the invisible line. You don't want it to be 30 feet long because what's going to happen is that when you place that monitor, for instance, the invisible line is going to cut right through the cut plane, which is what we wanted to do. It's going to cut through the floor, maybe the next cut plane, and you're going to see that monitor on the floor below, which you really don't want to happen. So a little bit of restraint. Place that invisible line and make sure that the geometry has been told to not be visible in plan. Place symbolic lines, make sure they're constrained, drop this into your project. This invisible line is going to tap the cut plane on his shoulder and tell him, hey, I'm here. And you're going to see those symbolic lines in your plan view.
Yeah, Rina, I use this trick a lot for elevator, just simple elevators when we are in schematic design. I make it a dynamic length, so I can select how tall that cut line is and how below it goes too. So you can still see the elevator and the pit and everything. So
that's awesome. That's an awesome tip. That's an awesome tip, Nauman. Thank you. Now, there's a story behind this tip where we had a project going on, and around the atrium, we had glass railings going above and, a steel hollow section going below. Now, the hollow section, the beams, could have been modeled separately, but just to save time, the decision was made to not model the beams, incorporate them in the railing. And that railing ended up on my table. to do that, now, for railings, what do you need? You need profiles. And structural components don't really give you a profile. So here's the workaround I came out with, went into my detailed components library, pulled out the required family, and I copied the line work. Do not copy the filled regions at all from there. Copy the line work. When I copied the line work, it brought the constraints and parameters along with them and dropped them into a profile family. Once that was done, then I was able to bring in that new profile into my railing and place it the way that I wanted it to be. And that worked pretty nicely. A time saver alert. This was fairly recent. My good friend Daniel Stein mentioned that on LinkedIn, and I just went, dang it, I can't believe I missed this. You've got a linked model. Tab click to select a family instance from the link, Control C, Control V. You now have that, that family instance present in your host model. A real time saver. You don't have to open the link. You don't have to copy, paste, edit, unload, reload, all of that fun stuff, no more. And with that, let's take a look at some parameter magic. Now, parameters, whenever I talk about parameters, I kind of see the listeners get a glazed look in their eyes just because of the amount of mystique that parameters carry along with them. I like to think of Revit as being an unruly teenager, where parameters are the rules that I set up for what Revit may do. And the constraints are when I tell Revit that this is what you're not going to do. So let's take a look at some ways to work and make the best of parameters. Rotation parameters. This is a trick which a long time ago at the stage when I was kicking and screaming and I really hated Revit. And I was shown this trick by another dear friend, Alfredo Medina. This was, first of all, brought in to create a north arrow. And you can use it for a whole bunch of stuff. You can use it for doors, anything that needs to be controlled by a rotation parameter. In this case, we started off with a reference line. I take the reference line, I constrain it to my reference planes, drag it, make sure that it rotates correctly, control it with a rotation parameter. And then I window select all of my line work. And I go into edit work plane and I host all of this line work to the work plane defined by the reference line, as you can see. So now when I drag my reference line around, it will take the line work along with it. I will be able to control it by the parameter that has been set up. One of the things which was noticed, but and gave me quite a few anxious moments was a lot of times when I rotated the component to maybe 270 degrees or greater, then the parameter would break. If that happens, take your family, nest it into another family, associate the parameters, it will work. Another one of my absolute favorite things to do. Have you ever been in a situation where you got a bunch of text and you create the text and then maybe you are missing a line and you've got to move stuff around. You've got to make sure the lines line up correctly. You've got to make sure that all the text is the same font. Here's one way to get over it, because when you are creating labels in a family, you can actually create labels with multiple parameters. Just make sure to set up a break. And if there is boilerplate text that needs to be in the label, take the boilerplate text and create a prefix out of that. So now when you have the label, it's in the family, you've placed the family in your project, you slow click. You're not double clicking. You go click, 1, 2, 3, click, kind of like the waltz, right? So you do a slow double click on the label that you now see in your project. That's going to bring up a dialog box. And you can type in whatever it is that you need without having to worry about things lining up or not lining up or whatever. Another cool thing, if the value does not have any information in it, this line will disappear from the label. So you're not worrying about moving lines up, down, left, right, or whatever. Now, these are some really generic tips from all over the place, where these would be answers that would have been in response to questions from the team, or just, something that was really, really convenient for me. Making sure that wall finishes wrap around openings. The first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that default wrapping has been set up correctly. Secondly, where you have got windows placed in a wall and you want to control the extent of the finishes wrapping around the window opening, edit the family. And there is, just look for this one reference plane. When you click the reference plane, it will tell you that it is a wall closure. Look for that reference plane. If it isn't there, go ahead, create a reference plane wherever it is that you want the finishes to stop and tell it that it's a wall closure. And that will then control the amount of wrapping that the finishes would do. One of my favorites, especially when I'm putting together curtain walls. We already know about the equality constraint. In this case, what I'm trying to do is I am trying to set up this wall. Yeah, it's in millimeters. It was the standard Revit sample file. We'll get over it. So here I have got a wall, a curtain wall that's 12 meters long. I want the central panel to stay at 3,900 millimeters. So I go ahead, I lock the overall dimension, I lock the static dimension. The other two, the 3,200 and the 4,900 panels, they need to be equal. In this case, what do? I select this curtain grid, make sure that the dimension is editable, and I enter in a formula. To tell Revit that I'm trying to create a formula-driven dimension, I would need to start by typing in the equals to sign, and Revit will do what I want it to do. Nauman, I'm about to lose my voice. Over to you for your specialty and your passion, boosting Revit and BIM360 performance.
Thank you. Yeah, so thanks for those tips. That was awesome. So here's the BIM360 Secret 7. Those who are coming, as children, we used to love Enid Blyton from England. She's an author for children's books, an amazing book. Me and Rina have both grown up, probably Viveka as well. But nonetheless, if your models are misbehaving, making sure to empty the collaboration cache. If you want more detailed info, we'll cover that in the handout for the class, but I just want to touch those briefly. Empty the desktop connector cache if your machine is getting full as well. And then making sure that you have the latest version of the desktop connector and the Revit updates installed. Make sure that it's all the same update is installed on all the machines that are being accessed on that project. The biggest one, number 4, daily publish your models for backup. Meaning that what happens is if you don't publish them daily or whenever you make a change, Revit, you will not be able to download an older version. The only option Revit gives you is to revert back to an older version that was how many saves ago, and you lose all the forward changes. So this way you can download an older version from BIM360 web docs, and you can, or should we say Autodesk docs? I apologize. The names are still, I still say AutoCAD instead of AutoCAD architecture. I call it ADT, architectural desktop still. It's been ages, but anyways. Then selectively publishing views. So every time you publish, you don't have to have all the views published because it takes time to publish all the views. So if you want do that, I'll share an amazing tip on using publishing 3D views for model coordination later as well. Not in this, but I will post a blog. Never link a local drive to a cloud share. Make sure all the project files that are linked in, images, your CAD files are on the cloud shared folder and link them through the desktop connector. And most of the problems accessing and removing, issues with can't edit the file. Sometimes you can't open the file from BIM360 or it's grayed out. A lot of times it can be make sure that the licensing is correct between the user. Make sure that you add and remove the team member as well, making sure that you have assigned them correct permissions, in whether they have access to BIM360 docs or you have design collaboration access model. So you will have to make sure that all those items are there and making sure that you've set up the teams correctly as well. and the famous 5 for our the Revit. This is another amazing book series from Enlighten 2. Don't overmodel. I mean, if you don't see something at 1/8 inch or something, typically I would not model it. Leave at those 1.5 to 1.5 inch details, or 1:10 detail, or 1:20 detail. Sorry, Rina, I have to say metric too. Okay.
Go for it.
Be mindful of the 20-mile limit. Okay, so when you are bringing in CAD, you're importing CAD, or shall I say, please don't import CAD.
Please don't
Anyway,
import.
you should always link them. But in any case, be mindful of the 20 limit as well. And divide and rule, meaning just break up your model. Make sure that you are setting up work sets, making sure that not all work sets are visible in all views. Depending on the need as well, I always try to, whenever I create a central file, I always say to set it to specify. So when I open up my model, I don't load links that I don't need, so it prevents memory bloat and all that stuff. And model in place component on a need basis. My general rule is, if it is a system family that can't be represented, like a ceiling, barrel vaulted ceiling, that should be created as an in place, but not for like loadable families, period, in general. And load families on a need basis. Remember, we talked about not bloating up your model. Well, this is something that you should do, and make sure that you are purging and stuff. Well, talking about purging and also, let's make sure that things are kept clean a bit. This is my new favorite, the ever ballooning temp folder. I mean, every time I contact tech support for something or anything for Autodesk related, or even on directly too, they said, did you restart? Well, yeah, I did restart, but did you empty the temp folder? No. Well, the thing is, it's important that you are emptying your temp folder. If Revit crashes, it never does, correct? Well, it's an Autodesk software, heavy graphics. Come on, don't give them a break. Nonetheless, it won't clean up the files sometimes. So you want to make sure that you are emptying the temp. Now, Windows 10 added this awesome, easy. I mean, you can do it in the past, but the easy way to do it is just configure storage sense, basically. And all you got to do is turn that on, set it to at least a week, and delete temporary files. Make sure you turn that feature on. Keeping it clean on the project level as well, daily, create new locals. A local file a day keeps the support away. That's from Harlan Brum. He's a product manager. Oh, he said it like in 2009, and I still follow that rule. Publish Revit cloud models daily. We talked about that. For backup. And weekly, audit all your project files. Selectively purge, especially groups, loadable families, your images that bloat up your model. Compact the file, as well as review the warnings and keep them to a minimum. There are certain favorites that you want to be taking care of. You can look at the Code Blue handout for that. And avoid groups. Well, you can't avoid groups, but avoid nested groups. And you have to be very selective about grouping. Then
Nauman? Nauman?
On directly support,
Nauman?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's one question that came in about where do we empty the collaboration cache and the desktop connect cache?
Okay. I will post a link on the chat here in a minute when Rina takes over. I know exactly. Yeah. So thank you so much for asking that question. It's a great point. So playing nicely with CAD. Well, this has been the sort, because out of my expertise is to fix corrupt Revit files, and especially on directly the missing elements error. 99% of the time, it was related to exploded CAD files and tons of CAD files, and it slows you down tremendously. So
Nauman has this really long write-up that he will give out to any customer who has a file corruption issue. So you just see that, and yep, it's the exact same problem.
Yeah. Yeah, Rina, why don't you post it on the chat?
I should find one of those,
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, so avoid importing CAD in project and families. Avoid importing CAD and explode CAD. Well, I know somebody will import it, but please don't explode them. Never ever do that because it will mess you up. Your project can get corrupted because of it. But if you do, but I want to convert all my details. Well, that's fine. Yeah, you can still import and explode it, but do it in an interim file. Change uh, the line work to the Revit, and then copy and paste it into your actual project. Don't directly do that in your project. And I would say create a work set for CAD link models that are model CAD links, which are basically not current view only. Unload and remove any unneeded CAD files and break up like 3D CAD files. Sometimes we have Rhino and SketchUp files as well. So with that said, over to Viveka because she's our support expert and she deals with errors a lot.
Errors are a part of her daily diet. Go for it, Viveka.
Thanks, Nauman. A little story. I want to say that Nauman and myself connected over element corruption. So as we all know, like in the world of support, we get corrupted models, we get corrupted elements, and that's like an everyday story. So on the next slide, I'm just going to show you a little tip I have. So Rina, can you move on to the next slide, please? So one of the most common issues I see every day as a support specialist is we get a lot of warnings, especially when we edit geometry. And this geometry, we don't know like from where it arises from, but that there could be multiple reasons on why this happens. So we've just listed a couple of screenshots here, which is going to help resolve these issues. So one thing you can do is you can remove these constraints when you get a warning like this. Secondly, what you could do is you could cut and paste the geometry in exactly the same place, and that might remove all the constraints. But if you have a lot of views, the first thing I would ask any of my customers to do is like, why do you have redundant views in your model? So if you have redundant views, like Nauman had told us earlier, it's good to model wisely and keep your model to optimize your model. So remove all those views, and most probably when you remove these models, the constraint would already be applied on some of your views, and you will not get issues like these. So on the next slide, can you move to the next slide, please? So another one very, very common issue I'm seeing every day, even with the latest version, is that the schema conflict. And most often the schema conflict arises from a third-party plugin. So these third-party plugins, they might not be part of our Autodesk portfolio, or you might not find them from our app store, but these third-party plugins come with certain certifications. And if these are not validated within a Revit environment, sometimes you could get these conflicts. And you could always get a pop-up which warns you like, do you want to load the file or continue loading the file? And what you can do is I always start out asking my customers like, is your team updated? Are you updated with the latest hotfix? So it's good to have that protocol set out within your team and make sure that everyone is on the latest update, because just being on the latest update resolves a bunch of issues for you. And what you could also do is you could completely uninstall and reinstall that particular add-in, and that will help resolve the issues for you. So Nauman is going to walk us through some of our other tools. So over to you, Nauman.
Okay, thank you, Viveka. So our toolbox, some remedies, there are some Dynamo scripts to clear your stubborn textiles. I think there was a great tip that somebody had shared, Matt Wunsch had quickly created. You can just, this is not thing special of a Dynamo script, but the key is that getting this ID numbers of problematic elements within the model. There were some hidden CAD files that are CAD imports that we couldn't get deleted easily. So I use basically a quick Dynamo script, this one to allow, it says element types, CAD links, or text element types, or dimensions and things like that, that you can get the ID number. And basically, even if you click on one of these items, it should technically select in Revit as well. So that way you can delete and, or at least find out where the element is located sometimes, because some of the elements you can't locate them if they are on legends, unfortunately, so far. Then another one, our favorite tool has been PyRevit. If you go PYREVIT, it has tons of amazing tools in it, and it also helps you, purge out a lot of elements that you don't want in your file. But again, this is all or nothing, so be very careful as to what you use. I use a lot of my material purging, which are the render material elements bought in because of the exploded CAD. But we've been talking about how to make our lives easier now, but let's talk about a little bit of the future. Where are we going with certain technologies? And Viveka has the beat on that one.
There you go.
Okay, thank you, Nauman and Rina. That was a great roundup of the Revit tips. So I know we have a little bit of time left, so I'm going to give you a quick glimpse of what the future looks like. Of course, the future is bright, and we have a lot of technology suited for a variety of your needs. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk to you on the next slide. I'm going to talk to you very briefly about a digital twin. So Rina, can you help me navigate?
Here we go. Sorry
Thank
about
you. So digital twins. So what comes to your mind when we say digital twins? It's nothing but it's a physical replica of a completely 3D asset. And the solution we have within Autodesk is Autodesk Tandem for you. It's nothing but it's going to break up a bunch of information into very, very simple, easy to filter, formatted information, which you can even export over an Excel format. And if you can look at a couple of images I have on screen for you, it's going to give you an exact replica of the 3D model, which you can import from Revit. And your data is actually optimized. So what you can share with the building owners and with a bunch of other consultants, this is all optimized, easy to use, and this data is live. So what's more is when you do hand over to your clients, it makes life so much easier because everyone is able to share and view this on a cloud-based portfolio. And what's more is you could also do simulations and automations. So on the next slide, I do have a couple of other screenshots for you. And we can talk about this a little more in detail, but since we are close to time, just want to show you that it's very, very easy to create a new facility. You could model using 3D applications like Revit. You could use custom templates from Autodesk Tandem. And the interesting part is you could integrate all of this with a BIM360 docs, and it does support Revit 2017 and later. And what's interesting is you could bring in a bunch of links, and you could also filter the model according to the shell, according to whether you want to just view HVAC. So it's a lot of filtering, and it makes life so much easier. So the next solution I'm going to briefly run you through is SpaceMaker. And again, as the name implies, SpaceMaker offers you that one collaborative space, and this collaborative space is going to happen on the cloud for you. So it's a complete site tool or a site modeling tool where you can take your site, you can model in the cloud, you can generate a variety of options. And the interesting part is not just generate design options, but you could also take into consideration features like noise, pollution, surrounding elements. And SpaceMaker does all that for you in a completely cloud-based platform. And you could also import models from the Autodesk portfolio, and you could also export formats to suit the later part of your design, like handover and operations. So on the next slide, I just wanted to specify that SpaceMaker is seamless collaboration on the cloud. And again, just like Tandem, it makes life a lot easier. And one interesting thing is there's a total compliance with the local regulations. So in the past, it was like you had these bunch of blueprints and you had to run to the town planning association to get something approved. But within SpaceMaker, you do have all these local regulations. So you can simultaneously check if your model works in tandem with what's the requirement is. For example, if you need a setback of more than 3 feet in a particular model, and you could check if that is on par with the local regulations. So more to come on SpaceMaker, and we have a lot of information out there which we'll be happy to share with you. And before I leave you two of the most interesting solutions we have. One very close to heart solution is platform is Insight, because Insight is going to achieve your sustainability goals. If you have a 3D model and you're wanting that 3D model for long-term performance, or your building model to get long-term performance out of that building model, Insight is the way to go, because it's going to work towards your green building initiatives. It's going to give you a lot of information on how you can solve this sustainability problem. And I'm going to run through a little bit over here. So on the next slide, I'm also going to present to you very briefly on our extended reality solutions. I'm a part of the advisory committee with the extended reality solutions. So what I can tell you is there's been a lot of effort in the past year with virtual reality applications. We've been working with companies like Unity, Reflect, NVIDIA, and other solutions or other applications, where we have built a vision, and this vision is around collaboration. So if you're a designer who has a 3D model and you want to view it in virtual reality, we have all these solutions for you, right from viewing it and designing it, collaborating it with multiple stakeholders, and also the end goal where you manage your physical assets before handover by making your digital twin. So you have everything from your concept to your completion. So those are the solutions we have for you. And I'm going to pass it on to Kimberly for the concluding notes.
All right, thank you, Viveka. And also Rina and Nauman, thank you so much. For any questions, feel free to pop those into the chat window as we kind of wrap up here. So if you can go ahead to the next slide, Rina. All right, we kind of lost the slide there. So we're going to wrap up today's session with 2 more slides. If you are looking for other ways to connect and engage in the Autodesk community, we have a few resources for you. Go ahead and go back. You can explore the various Autodesk communities, including the global network of user groups in the Autodesk Group Network, our industry-focused communities helping your colleagues solve business challenges together, the Autodesk forums, Revit ideas, and stay connected with us on Twitter and Facebook, including several new Facebook groups for specific products. Also, if you are interested in presenting your own community conversation, you can do it. Please feel free to contact us. Be happy to have you. Go ahead to the next slide. So thank you for joining us for our community conversation today. There is a very short survey in the chat window. Please go ahead and click on that survey. It'll take you all of 2 minutes. We've got 4 minutes left, so I know you can finish it. We welcome your feedback about your experience today. Like I said, go ahead and take that survey now. Continue to stay connected in your Autodesk community. We hope to see you next time, and we hope to see you also at Autodesk University. Thank you to our presenters today for giving us this valuable community conversation. Have a great day, everyone.